It's time for the Homeschooling Buzz, episode 40, recorded November 17th, 2011. Interview with Jeff Myers, homeschool public speaker superstar. What? The Homeschooling Buzz is brought to you by the Christian Home Educators Association of California, the authority in home education. SHIA of California has been providing information, training, and support to the homeschool community for over 28 years. To get more information about homeschooling, visit SHIA at www.shiaofca.org. It's also brought to you by Total Transcript Solution. Having trouble producing a winning transcript? Check out the Total Transcript Solution at homeschoolnetcast.com/TTS. Now you can produce winning homeschool transcripts that will help your child's college dreams come true. It's also brought to you by ClickBank Pirate. During these tough economic times, everyone's trying to figure out how to make a little cash. Well, look no further because Soren Jorgensen and Cindy Batty have a shockingly simple system that can make you an extra $1,000 per month. Check them out, matey. Visit homeschoolnetcast.com/clickbankpirate. They also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. And now it's time for the Homeschooling Buzz. From Apple Valley, California, I'm Gerald McCoy, and I'm here to talk to you about what's buzzing in homeschooling. Well, we have a great show for you today. In this episode, we'll be talking to Jeff Myers, homeschool father and president of Summit Ministries. If these topics are interesting to you, then please stick around. Otherwise, tune in next week when we might have something of interest for you. Well, welcome back, my listeners and viewers, to today's show. We have a roller coaster ride for you. It's going to be pretty fun, ups and downs and side to side, bobbing and weaving. That's right. Through media, we educate, motivate, and facilitate. And today we have a very special guest on the show, Dr. Jeff Myers. Now, many of you might know Dr. Jeff Myers from his public speaking role within the homeschooling community. His float like a butterfly, sting like a bee style of public speaking. He definitely has a voice that can capture a nation, and he is respected and praised among his peers and homeschooling community. Tell you what, guys, in the last 20 years, Dr. Jeff Myers has become one of America's most respected authorities on youth leadership, development, and he is now on the board of directors at Summit Ministries. What an awesome privilege I have to welcome Dr. Jeff Myers. All right, Dr. Jeff Myers, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, good. I was just saying, this is the first time I've ever been described as a superstar, so I think I'm going to keep a copy of it, or keep a recording of this.
Well, you know what? You are. You're definitely a superstar. Every time I hear you speak, you have this oratory skill that kind of captures everyone, and everyone's out kind of focused on you, and every drop, every tittle, every spoken word that you utter while you're on stage, is basically hanging on every word. You know, you have a book, or you have a product. It's called Playpen to Podium. And sometimes when I hear you talk, I feel like I'm still a baby in the podium.
Oh, listen, this is something that I've been doing ever since I was actually in ninth grade. In eighth grade, I was asked to give a speech, which was an oral book report, and I was totally unprepared. I had not prepared the oral book report. I had not read the book. I was so mortified, I broke down and cried in my class.
Oh, man.
My parents signed me up for the speech class the following year, and then I enjoyed the debate team, did that all the way through college, and so it's really been a privilege to be able to speak in all 50 states and, 20 different foreign countries, and but the reality is I'm only speaking because I have one really important thing I care about, and that is preparing a rising generation of leaders.
Awesome.
So if I'm speaking on anything else, I'm not interested. In fact, I don't even think I could give a good presentation. But when I'm on that topic, that just gets right to the heart of why I am here on this planet.
Well, awesome. You know what? Well, let's jump right into it because we want to know how you got started in homeschooling. We know that that you are definitely preparing the next generation, but you're also preparing your little generation that you have there in your house. So let's talk about the homeschooling, and how did that get started? When did you first hear about homeschooling? What motivated you to get into homeschooling? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. A number of years ago, my parents decided that there were four children in our family. My brother and I, and then we're about 2 years apart, and then there was a 9 year gap, and then two more kids.
Wow.
And I think my parents looked at how we were doing in school and said, "Well, we can't possibly do any worse than that, so we'll homeschool these two younger ones." And that's how I had first heard about the homeschooling. I was in college by the time they were really involved in it. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but when I got out to the Summit Ministries, I worked on my master's degree and went out to help David Noble at Summit Ministries develop a curriculum for a couple of years. And when I got there, we were looking for ways to reach out to new groups of people we weren't really talking with that much. And so I was happened to be in the Washington, D.C. area, and I called up this guy named Mike Ferris, and I said, "Can I come and see you?" He said, "Yes. I live, west of Washington, D.C." And so I drove. Gerald, at that time, it was in the country. It was in the boonies. And now, if you go there, it is solid city all the way out to Purcellville, Virginia. But at that time, there was nothing there. And I went out to see Mike. He had his office in this big white country farmhouse. Went inside, said, "Can I show you a video real quick?" Showed him a video about our summit course and said, "Now, who do I need to be in touch with in order to get involved with the homeschool movement?" He said, "Well, I'm one guy, so you got me. This is exciting. I like it. You want to get in touch with Greg Harris and Mary Pride," and he gave me a couple of other names as well. And then so I just got in touch with each one of those individuals, and lo and behold, somebody through one of those contacts said, "Why don't you come and speak at a conference here, do a teen program here at this conference?" And when I got there, they said, "Well, we can do the teen conference in one day, and then on the next day, how about if you speak to the adults? In fact, we want you to stand up and speak in front of the whole group." The funny thing about that, Gerald, is not only was I not homeschooling my kids, I had no kids. I wasn't even married at that point in my life.
Oh, man.
So you can imagine how awkward it is to stand up at a homeschool conference and say, I'm here to talk about homeschooling your children. I have no children.
Oh, that's so
I am
funny.
not married. And, of course, I think I probably made some comment about, you've heard me speak. I tend to just say what I think. And
Yeah.
so,
And
I would later, a friend told me, he said, "You remember that situation?" I said, "Yeah, I can remember it." He said, "Do you remember what you actually said?" I said, "Not really." He said, "Well, you said, well, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I'm not homeschooling anybody, but, I'm a single guy. But I guess if it works for Bill Gothard, it could work for me." And I said, "I did not say that." He said, "Yes, you did." So I have to sometimes repent of, the foot and mouth disease.
Yeah,
But I wasn't meaning to be disrespectful. I was just trying to say something funny, which is what usually gets you in trouble, right?
yeah, well, that's true. I've been in trouble a couple times already.
It's hard to imagine, I know, but
Yeah, but you know what? So okay, you're up there, single guy, non-homeschooling. What happened?
well, I was going to give a speech on. In fact, I did give a speech on what character qualities are necessary to prepare your kids to be leaders. And I said, "Hey, I'm not here to tell you how to be a parent. I'm here to tell you what we need as in America, your children to become to save this country."
Right.
And that was a message that resonated with those parents. And I have to tell you, I think I've spoken at just about every homeschool conference that there is in the United States. And I've even had an opportunity to speak at a homeschooling conference in Korea. Now, most of my international trips and most of the trips I take around the U.S., I'm not working with homeschool groups, believe it or not. I'm only doing that, 7 or 8 times a year. Most of the time I'm working with companies or colleges or Christian schools or, political groups, things like that. So it's a rare treat, but I've got, this from going to these conferences. There is no more enthusiastic place that you could possibly speak than at a homeschooling conference.
Oh yeah.
Because parents are all in. If they come to the
Yep.
homeschool conference, they decided, I'm going to take this radical step and educate my children at home. They are all
Yep.
in.
You're so
And when
right.
they come to the conference, they are ready to go. And so
Ready.
if you stand up and say, folks, this nation is going into the tank, and we can train our children to be leaders who can love God and be a blessing to the nations,
You get all those
that's a
whoops and
message that gets right
hollers.
to the heart.
Yep.
hmm Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So when did you actually progress? I mean, so okay, so you're going along, you're this single guy. When did you meet your wife, and when did you guys finally decide to homeschool? Was it right out of the gate when you got married? Hey, we're going to homeschool because I'm speaking on homeschooling.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I bet Danielle probably came over and actually helped at our booth at a homeschool conference before we were even married. We actually met at the summit.
Oh,
Now
wow,
you
that's
talked a
pretty
little
cool.
bit about the Summit Ministries program, but what probably a lot of your listeners don't know is that the Summit Ministries 12-day program is one of the most game-changing experiences that a young adult between the ages of 16 and 21 can ever have in his entire life. We just finished a study of 1,500 of our graduates from the last 50 years. This program has been going for half a century. And it is absolutely astounding the impact that this program has on kids in preparing them to love God and to engage the culture. Well, Danielle actually came to the program because there was a young man named Ryan Dobson. I don't know if that last
Oh
name
yeah.
rings any bells for you, but Ryan Dobson came to the summit. His father, James Dobson, the psychologist, said, "Son, you're going to need to do this." And Ryan said, "I don't want to." And he said, "Well, I think here's the deal. You can go to the summit and drive your car, or you can stay home and walk for the next year." And Ryan said, "I will go." But as Jim says, he left skid marks all the way across the Rockies. He did not want to come to the summit, but he did. And not only did he enjoy it, he actually came home and said, "Can I grab a bunch of my friends and go back for another 2 weeks?" And so he did.
Wow.
Well, Jim Dobson was so impressed with this program because it's hard to reach. He's a very good friend of mine, but in that season of his life, he was hard to reach. It was hard to help him grab a vision for what he could do with his life. And so Jim said, "Hey, look, I've got this radio show. I'm going to put you guys on it." Well, when Jim Dobson says this is the best thing ever, and he says that to a radio audience of 7 million people, you get some response. We went from, I think, 250 students to having 14,000 requests for applications
Wow.
in 1 month. So I was at Baylor University finishing my master's degree, and David Noble called me and said, "Jeff, I need your help." I said, "Why?" He said, "We got 14,000 requests for applications. We've never had more than 250 students here.
Holy
What are we going to do?"
smokes.
I said, "Well, I wish I could come out and help you, but I'm writing my thesis." He said, "Well, how much have you written?" "Well, obviously, I've written chapter 1 because you can't write the rest until you get chapter 1 approved. I've written chapter 2. He said, "Great, you only have 3 more chapters to go." I said, "That's right." He said, "Fantastic. I'll see you in 3 weeks." Hung up the phone. And so I said, "Okay, I'll take that on as a challenge." I wrote the draft of my thesis, the remaining 3 chapters in 3 weeks. Went out there, helped him make it through that summer with hundreds and hundreds of kids coming through there that had never happened before.
Wow.
And then we began to kind of get our feet under us and settle that program in. Well, one of those kids whose mom had heard this program on the Dobson radio show was Danielle DeBoer. So she came out as a student, liked it so well, she came out as a staff member. And then a couple of years, she did other things during the summers, and then she came back out as a staff member again. And it coincided with the time that I was in the season of my life where I was, getting into my late 20s, and I really felt like I was ready to be a husband and father. And Danielle and I really met at that time, and I was just deeply impressed with her character. She's a fantastic girl. She's very energetic, beautiful, and but I was just so impressed by the fact that in tough situations, she got tougher. When you're working in a summer program, especially in a very intense environment, it's really easy for your character flaws and cracks to come through. But I found that the tougher things got, the more of a servant Danielle became, and very adventurous and tough. And so I was just very, very drawn to that. She loved the Lord, and so we actually began a courtship relationship through the summit. There are a couple stories about that I got to tell you, because this ties back into homeschooling in some funny ways. Very first homeschool conference I ever went to was with this guy named Greg Harris, and so he said, "Hey, you know what? We're staying at this house up here. Why don't you come up here and stay with us?" They got a hot tub and all that. So after the conference was over, we all went and sat in the hot tub. He said, "Here, this is my son, Josh." So we sat in the hot tub, visited for a long time. Well, and Josh and I started to, I was a little sort of a mentor to him at that point. He was a teenager, and I was in my 20s, and he ended up coming to the summit, having experience there. But when I met Danielle, we said, "Hey, you know what? We don't want to do this old traditional dating thing. We both got burned by that in the past. We don't want to do that. Let's do this courtship thing," because we'd read this article from Joshua about this. So we said, let's just try that. Let's see if we can put that into practice. And so we did. We got to the point very quickly where we knew we were going to be married. And so I called Josh. I said, "Hey, man, how do you transition from this courtship into actual engagement?" Okay. Now you got to keep in mind, I was in my middle to late 20s. Joshua was 18 years of age. I'm asking him
you seeking
advice
counsel
about how to get married. Yep. He said, "Wow, Jeff," because he's so diplomatic. I don't know if you ever talked with him. He said, "Well, Jeff, that's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that." He said, well, when you get it figured out, let me know. We'll write an article about it." That was the best he had for me. But it was a great moment. And so Danielle and I ended up getting married. And I got to tell you, this last year, James Dobson retired as he was founder of Focus on the Family. He retired from that, but he still wanted to be on the radio, so he started a new program called Family Talk that he and his son Ryan do together. Yep. Yeah, it's a great program. It's on 700 some stations. It's still pretty big. And so, we love the Dobsons, and David Noble and I went over there, and we were doing one of the shows to talk about the summit. And Jim, I said, "Dr. Dobson, you need to understand that you're actually responsible for my marriage and my 4 children." He said, "Well, how's that?" I said, and I told him the story. I said, "It was because of your program promoting Summit on Focus on the Family that Danielle came out to the summit, and that's how we met, and we got married, and we have 4 kids." And he was so overjoyed to hear that. He turned to the producer and said, "Turn the recording thing back on." He said, "Now, we're gonna tell me that story." So I told the story. He said, "That's definitely going in the show." And then he, at the very end of it, he said, "Well, I only have one thing to say. Lord, do it again." And that was it. That was the end of the show. And it was so funny because Gerald, I was thinking, oh man, he just told the entire United States of America that if you want your child to get married, you
come to Summit Ministry.
To the summit.
You can find a good woman. Come on down.
Oh,
That's so funny.
We just in one fell swoop, we became the Christian equivalent of dating.com or whatever.
Man.
Those,
see now, Jeff, you're gonna get me in trouble again. My viewers are gonna say, "Hey, what is going on here?" Because dating service.
But the funny thing is, we never set out at the summit to for kids to pair up. Well, in fact, we really discourage them from pairing up while they're there. But you would be amazed how many kids meet at the summit and then they go through a dating relationship, end up getting married, having kids. There are little summit babies all over America. I love it. I love it. I meet these people everywhere I go. Like, you met at the summit? Yeah, we got babies now. Let me see those babies. It's so great to just see all those little summit babies all over. And because, here's what happens. Basically, in America, just because somebody's Christian doesn't mean they have a Christian worldview. So if you meet somebody who's a believer, that's good. Then you're not unequally yoked. But that's only a starting point. What about your views on all the issues of life? So when people come to the summit, they're already fairly well of a like mind. They may not be the same Christian denomination, but they're thinking the same way. They want to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so, it's pretty interesting in that way. But
you know what, Dr. Jeff, you bring up a really good point. Let me play something real quick that I know you'll probably recognize.
The Force. The Force? Now, the Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
Oh, yeah, you remember that.
Yep. Oh, I do. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi talking to Luke Skywalker about the Force.
Yeah, and you know what?
Uh,
There's I know that at Summit, you guys are really big on talking about worldviews. And
Yes.
so since we're on this topic anyway, let's jump over to that. So explain to our audience what exactly is a worldview. What is it?
Yeah. Well, a worldview it's simply two things. It is your view of the world, and it is your view for the world based on how you answer the ultimate questions in life. By ultimate questions, I mean the questions that everybody has to grapple with. Even if they don't want to think about them, they end up living as if they have answers to those questions. Things like, where did we come from? What is the purpose of life? What happens when we die? How should we live our lives? How do we know that our answers to those questions are true?
Right.
When we start asking questions like that, we are in the realm of worldviews.
Right.
Because if somebody believes human beings evolved through random chance processes, there is no purpose to life, it does not matter how we live, and nothing happens when we die. When that person's alarm clock goes off in the morning, they wake up and approach the world very, very differently from someone who wakes up and says, I am made in God's image. He cares about me. He sent his son to redeem me. I am honored and blessed, and grace is overflowing in my life, and I want to express that to other people so that they have that experience with Christ that I have had. You end up with, if you take those two people, now I'm not a great morning person. If you took me in the first 5 minutes and put me up against somebody from a secular humanist worldview in the first 5 minutes of the day, you might not see much difference. But I'm hoping that as we go through the day, you'd see a radical difference. And we go through a year, you would see a remarkable difference. You used to go through 5 or 10 years, you'd see an extraordinary difference between the way somebody from a Christian worldview and somebody from a secular humanist worldview lives life. So we tell the students, it's not just your view of the world. It's not just how you process all the things you see every day. It's your view for the world. What kind of difference do you want to make? 60% of young adults today said they want to make a difference in the world. But get this. The studies done by William Damon up at Stanford University say that only 1 in 5 kids ages 12 to 22 has any sense of purpose in life where he knows where he's going and why he would go there in life.
Man, well, I've got 5 kids, so you're telling me only one of my kids is going to know where they're going.
On average, your kids, don't do that to your kids. You let them, well, a lot of families, you know what they do? They say, well, hey, look, I don't know how to treat, I don't know what to do with my kids. I'm going to just send them off to so-and-so. These people are the experts. They know what to do. Well, the experts, and we go through this a lot in America, the experts may not have your children's best interests at heart.
Right.
They may actually be trying to indoctrinate them into a different worldview.
Yes.
And so it is very important that families consider carefully what it means to have a Christian worldview and how to prepare their children to have that Christian worldview and live it out in every area of life. And that's what we really focus on at Summit. We do this at homeschool conferences. We have these 12-day experiences, which I tell parents, whatever you do with your children in life, you've got to absolutely positively make sure they come to one of these 12-day experiences. I can prove that it's life-changing.
Awesome.
And then of course, we even, this is a new thing. I don't know if we talked about this when I was out at your conference there, but we have a new book series. Have you seen this? It's called What We Believe.
Yeah, What We
Put
Believe.
out by Apologia Press. What We Believe, yeah. There are 4 books. The first 2 are done. The third one is being finished up. We'll be ready for the homeschool season this year. But the first one is Who is God? And the second book asks the question, Who am I? Because in Scripture, when God says, I'm God and I'm going to come talk to you, the very next question they always ask, well, who am I? It's the Isaiah. God comes and talks to him, and Isaiah says, wow, I am a man of unclean lips. He understands God's nature and character, and he immediately begins to look at his own. So, who's God? Who am I? Third question, who is my neighbor? And the fourth question is, What on earth am I doing? Kind of a little play on words there.
Right.
So it covers God's nature and character, human nature, relationships, evangelism, and then ultimately stewardship. So it's a great 4-book series. If your kids are only 6 or 7 years of age, they can go through that series. It's, Apologia Press is a well-respected homeschool publishing company, and we've used them a lot as family devotion, and kids really like it.
Awesome. Well, since we're on that topic, let's talk about some of the other things that you guys are doing at Summit Ministries. I have up here the What We Believe. Now, you also have another thing called Light Bearers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what's that one about?
Well, we've developed for Christian schools and for homeschools. We have developed curriculum materials that allow parents to teach biblical worldview to their children in the context of the home. For the elementary, the books I just described are probably best for the elementary, the What We Believe series.
Right.
For the middle school, we have a program called Light Bearers. That would be for, say, 8th grade. And it helps students develop a foundation of a biblical worldview. What do we actually believe? Why do we actually believe it? Why do we think that it's true? And then for the high school level students, we have the program called Understanding the Times, which helps them apply that foundation they get in middle school to all of the issues that they are seeing around them in the world every day.
Right.
So that's kind of how it works.
Now, you also have, obviously, the student conferences as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, where you met your wife.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, listen, I'm a big fan of these programs for a lot of reasons. But, I think I would just mention very briefly a little earlier that we have just studied 1,500 of our graduates from the last 50 years. And we found that our students, it's very rare for people to have a biblical worldview. I'm sure you've looked at some of these studies by George Barna. Only 9% of Americans can answer 6 simple biblical worldview questions correctly. Is there a God? Are morals absolute? Is Jesus for real? Is the Bible true? Is Satan real? There are 6 questions in George Barna's little survey. Only 9% of Americans can get the correct answer to all 6 of those questions. Only 19% of born-again Christians can get the correct answer to all 6 of those questions. That's pretty shocking.
Wow.
So we asked our graduates, where are you on this? We found that our graduates are 9 times as likely as the average American and 4 times as likely as the average born-again Christian to possess a biblical worldview. And then we started asking them questions like, before Summit and after Summit, what difference did this program make in your life? And then we just ran some statistical tests so we could see what the significant differences are. We found that there is a statistically significant difference that kids tell us they have experienced before Summit and then to after Summit in their Christian convictions, their understanding of a Christian worldview, their understanding of other worldviews, their ability and willingness to defend their faith, their ability to share their faith, their devotional life, their prayer life, their voting habits, their entertainment habits, and their finances.
Wow.
All that in 12 days because they get a strong foundation. And I can describe why I think it does that. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go, but I can certainly talk about that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that. Yeah, we want to explore all directions.
Yeah, let's do it. One of our Summit courses now, we have this 12-day program, but we wanted to have more in-depth things. So we developed some curriculum, and then we developed 2 different what we call gap year programs. One of them is called Summit Semester. It's in Colorado. It's a fantastic 3-month program that builds community, just remarkable for kids just when they're out of high school, before they go to college, especially important for guys because it's really hard for guys to step into college, at a very good level of maturity right away. If they take 3 months and come to this, it's a good deal. But we also have one at Oxford University, and that leads me into this story. When you go to Oxford University, you see this library called the Bodleian, and it looks like the Harry Potter kind of place.
I knew you were going to say that.
Because that's the only cultural context that most Americans have for understanding what it actually looks like.
Yep.
But it is a remarkable library. The volumes that they have in there are old and they're precious and it's extraordinary. But they have, get this, 6 million books in that library.
Wow.
So every time I go there, I just I walk, I look at that Bodleian library, and the one verse comes to my mind. You know what it is?
Which one?
2 Corinthians 10:5. Take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And I think, oh my, how many thoughts are in 6 million books? And I'm supposed to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. How on earth am I going to do that? Well, different people have different responses. Some just ignore that command entirely. I'll love God with my heart, with my emotions, but I don't really care about loving Him with my mind. Well, with our Summit students, we tell them, look, you don't have to understand every single thought in every single one of those 6 million books to understand the times in which you live. But if we give you, and this is what we do at Summit, if we give you a mental model of worldviews that allows you to see more, then you'll be able to figure out what's going on. And here's why we do it. Okay, just imagine for a moment that a spy, a CIA spy, walked into your studio there, took one look around, walked out of the room. I would venture to say that that spy could record more details of what he saw in that room than the average person.
Yep,
correct?
I agree. I've seen the Bourne Identity and the Bourne Supremacy.
Yeah. But the spy has been trained
fully trained
to look for certain things, to see certain things, and to organize certain things. This has been an area of study that's been fun for me as a communications scholar. Because a lot of people say, hey, well, there are people out there with photographic memory. They're geniuses. And in fact, one study looked at chess players, and they could play half of it. There could be, have a half-played chess game. They could show it to one of these expert chess players for just a few seconds. That chess player could turn around and from memory write down the location of every single piece on that board.
Yep.
Which is remarkable. We call that a photographic memory, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the researchers played a trick on them. They arranged the pieces on the board randomly, and not as a played game, but just randomly. Then they said, okay, turn around, look at this. They turned around, looked at it for a few seconds, turned back around, and would you believe their recall about the places of each one of those pieces on the board was just as bad as the non-chess players. So it wasn't that they had a photographic memory, it's that they understood the game so well that they could, develop chunks in their mind of, figuring out what's been played in this game. How has the game been played? So what we call intuition is really just practice based on a mental model. Well, we applied that to the idea of worldviews. We said, okay, students, there are 10 major subject areas you need to understand: theology, philosophy, ethics, biology, psychology, sociology, politics, economics, history, and law. And there is a Christian worldview in each one of those areas. And there are 5 counterfeit worldviews in each of those areas as well: Islam, secular humanism, postmodernism, Marxism, and the New Age movement. So we're going to teach you how to identify each one of those worldviews and what they say in each one of those 10 categories. So you got 10 rows, you got 6 columns, you have 60 little boxes, 60 little ideas. Do you see that?
Yep.
And so we say to the students, we're going to ask you to learn 60 ideas. But if you understand these 60 ideas, you will have a mental model for understanding everything else.
Wow. And
David Noble, who's a genius, put this thing together and began inviting students to come in and participate in it, and it has had a remarkable impact on the world.
Wow. I mean, it's basically just like a key. They've been given this key to be able to unlock the secrets that are out there. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
That's pretty awesome. Well, you know what? We've only got 10 minutes now because I learned real quick that you got to respect the guest's time. So you know what? Let me move on to another question here that I had. And that question is, what is your current role in the homeschooling community at the moment? What are you doing right now in the homeschooling arena?
Yeah, it's a good question. Not really very much. I did go and speak on the homeschool circuit over the last several years, kind of made my way around the country, speaking at events. but I'm not doing that much anymore. I am speaking at a handful of homeschooling conferences this year. I did 1 or 2 last year. I think I'm doing 3 or 4 this year. And so I don't know, I don't really think of myself as a leader in the homeschool movement. I think of myself as a homeschool dad who is passionate about helping all families who have a Christian faith prepare their children to be culture-shaping leaders.
That's good.
And
I like that.
And I just love homeschool families because on balance, they're significantly more likely to be that kind of a family.
Yeah.
And so they're great to work with.
You're right. You're right. I mean, our listeners are definitely like that. Okay. So from your perspective, from your vantage point, looking from shaping leaders and honing these new individual students that are coming up in the world right now, where do you feel that homeschooling is headed in the next 2 to 5 years? We got the charter schools, we got all of these new homeschooling type vehicles that are being thrown at us left and right. And right now it kind of seems like the wild, wild west. Everyone,
yeah,
it seems like what to go for? Should I go for private Christian homeschooling because I don't want the government being involved? Should I go for the charter schooling because hey, I get stuff for free? Should I go for this, that? So it almost seems like wild, wild west hodgepodge right now. So where do you feel homeschooling is headed in the next 2 to 5 years? Let's put on our prophecy caps right now. Let's test this out.
Okay. As long as nobody gets to listen to this program 2 to 5 years from now and see what we see whether we were right. Here's what I think happened. The homeschool movement started out, and people were persecuted for homeschooling.
Yep.
They were persecuted socially, and they were persecuted in many cases by the governments that were trying to reinforce a rigid government school-based ideology.
Right.
That was largely based on a secular humanist worldview. About that, there is no debate. There's no debate about that at all. Everybody knows that's true. Even the secular humanists themselves know that's true. So the original homeschoolers were deeply committed because they were under attack. Well, today, homeschooling is legal in every state, and in the United States of America. It's still illegal in a lot of other countries, but it's legal all across America. You don't have to suffer, be persecuted. If it used to be if you said, I'm homeschooling my kids, people would look at you like, are you insane?
Oh, yeah.
But now it's like, oh, that's cool. No, that's a good option. If that works for you, that's great. And so people they're not on the defensive in the sense that they don't, you don't have to be a real nervy, committed, strong-hearted person to be a homeschooler anymore. And that is part of the problem, you see, because strong-hearted, nervy people can train up kids who will be great leaders.
Right.
But if anybody can homeschool and it's easy, then it's like anything else. If I said to you, I want you to join my football team, and I've actually got 2 teams here. One, it is going to kick you in the rear. You're going to have to go to 2-day practices. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to come home at night and collapse and wish you could die.
Right.
But by the time we get into that season, you are going to be in the best shape of your life, and we are going to win.
That's right.
Okay? But then if I said to you, but I've got this other option too. It's kind of like a powder puff thing. We get together, our games are 5 minutes long, we have a rule against running, and, and no touching at all. You can't hit anybody, you can't do anything. And then after 5 minutes, we stop and, we eat cake and drink soda.
And I want the jacket so I can get women. that's basically what that team is for.
Well, exactly. Yeah, all the people who show up for that, one thing about them: they are not really committed to football. Okay, they might be committed to other things, but they are not committed to football.
You're right.
So that I think we need to really, I'd encourage any homeschool parent listening to this to say to themselves, there are lots of options out there.
Yes. But
we are committed to this because America, as I said earlier, is going in the wrong direction, and our children are being raised up to turn the tide. Who else is going to stand in the gap?
Right.
I mean, who else? So when parents begin to have that fire in their belly for doing homeschooling, not just because it's a nice, easy thing to do and all their friends do it, but they get that fire in their belly that I am preparing future leaders for God's purposes, to know Christ, to make him known in every aspect of culture, then I think we'll begin to see a resurgence of passion in the homeschool movement, which I think is probably a little bit lacking right now.
Yeah.
Homeschool leaders for a long time in the States, their focus was legislation, making sure that the laws are straight, and they do monitor all of that, and it's not easy. A lot of people think that's really easy, but when you go to the state legislature, you realize these people come up with things to do you would never even think of. Hundreds and hundreds of bills every year. They're the craziest things. You're like, what on earth are these people doing? And they just want to pass new laws just because. So you have to monitor that. But then a whole lot of homeschool state groups would just say, well, you know, what we do is we exist to have a conference. And in order to pay for this conference, we're going to have lots of exhibitors come here. Well, and, today a parent knows I can go to Amazon.com, pay for my Prime shipping thing, get all of my books for a 30% discount plus free shipping, and skip the conference entirely. So conference attendance is going down. Well, conference attendance was one of the key ways that homeschool leaders shared vision and inspired those who are coming along behind them. So we've got to find new avenues, new ways to create that message, to create that white-hot resolve that I think typified the early homeschool movement and led to such massive growth.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree. I would go as far as to say that right now, I think we are kind of like in the industrial revolution type age of homeschooling, and it's moving into the information age right now of homeschooling. So we're kind of in that transition period. Everything is kind of up in the air, and we kind of don't know where things are going. Everyone's coming left and right with their own ideas based on homeschooling and what we should be doing, and everyone has their own thing right now that they're trying to do. So I definitely agree with your assessment definitely. So
now, I can tell you. Let me just say one more thing
go
here,
ahead.
I know a lot of the people you probably have on the show, they really look suspiciously on charter schools and things like that, and I don't, but I have a different reason than most people. It's not because I want my children to be in them. It's because those having lots and lots of educational alternatives creates a wedge in between the government and government schools. It's no longer the case that you have to turn to the government to educate your children, which is a good thing in my view in America. And that's why, by the way, that's why the National Education Association fights so hard against vouchers and tax credits, because if parents could take that, if the money was portable and they could take it wherever they wanted, they're not going to take it to most of the public schools that exist today.
Yep, that's true.
And so, so the public schools, instead of really trying to compete, end up working very, very hard to enforce a government monopoly. Well, that never leads to the best outcomes. So I want better educational outcomes for every kid in America, and I think breaking the stranglehold of the government school system is the way to do that. I'm not saying that all government schools are bad either, nor am I saying that Christians should not go in those schools and teach, because I absolutely do believe they should, and they should be there for missionary activity in a way.
No, I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree. But, so let's take it one step further, though. A lot of the charter schools are actually still government run, and they're legislated by the government. So even those would be okay?
Well, here's the difference, though, and I don't know every state. I think there are 35 states that have charter school laws, and I have not looked at them all. But in the state of Colorado, the charter school is funded by the government, but the curriculum is not dictated by the state. The individual school can decide what that curriculum is going to be. They can decide they're going to be a classical school or a character-based school or, any number of different things that are of interest to different parents.
Right.
And they have the right to, they don't give tenure to the teachers. If a teacher is bad, He doesn't get to have a lifetime job as a reward for being terrible.
Right.
There is the collective bargaining process is broken because a lot of teachers in Wisconsin right now, people are mad. They're trying to recall Governor Scott Walker because he really broke the back of the teachers unions, and people are really upset at him. But
I heard about that.
And they're turning it looks like, unless something changes, he's going to be recalled for all of that. Well, he took a stand, he's going to be punished. Well, what's the punishment? The punishment is he would be knocked out of office by popular vote. Why? Because he understood that the right of teachers to collectively bargain wasn't about salaries. It was about making sure that that the state was prevented from taking steps that would improve the educational process in the state of Wisconsin. That is evil. That is evil stuff. So I think he was perfectly right to stand against it. Of course, I have lots and lots of friends in Wisconsin who scream at me when I say things like that. They just absolutely cannot stand that I believe that. But listen, I think the whole goal is whenever you break a government monopoly, everybody's better off. That is historically the truth, and I don't see why it shouldn't be true in education as well.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. So, you know what? We are out of time. So do you have any closing thoughts that you want to leave with our listeners? Any powerful words to hang on?
You know what? Just send the link around to as many people as you can, and I really appreciate what you're doing and encourage you to keep doing it, because this is an opportunity. See, this is not like a normal interview, right? I mean, we actually have a chance to really talk through things and get a little bit in depth.
Yep.
When I talked earlier about restoring that white hot fire for resolve for homeschooling, you're doing that. You're playing a role in that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Shoot. Forgive my colloquial slang there. I know that's not, the public speakers don't like that.
Well, no, keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Well,
and
sweet.
I'll look forward to hearing how it all goes.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Well, Dr. Jeff, thank you once again for being on the show. I know that you're a busy guy, and I'm going to go ahead and let you go. All right, guys.
All right, man.
Thanks.
Okay, take care.
Okay,
all
bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye.
All right, guys. Well, that was Dr. Jeff Myers, and what an awesome, awesome guy. He's definitely an eloquent speaker, and you guys could hear from a lot of the different talks that we went through that he has an opinion pretty much on everything, and most of his opinions have some great insights, pulling from the Bible, pulling from different things that are happening within our industry right now. And yeah, so Dr. Jeff Myers is definitely one of the thought leaders of our generation right now. And right now he's president of Summit Ministries, so took over for Dr. Noble. And it was a unanimous vote. So awesome, man. It was great having Dr. Jeff Myers on the show. Well, as usual, and I'm wondering why my stuff is not working now. All right, there we go. So as usual, we like to thank our listeners, thank our viewers, and just thank so very much for everyone tuning in. And there we go. Now it's working. For tuning in. And you know what? We had an awesome time. I definitely had a great time talking to Dr. Jeff Myers. Like I said, he had lots of insight, lots of wisdom, and you know why, I call him the float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, the Muhammad Ali of public speaking. What? So yeah, awesome guy. Well, you know what? Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for taking time out of your life. If you're walking on the treadmill, one more, come on. If you're lifting weights while you're listening to this, push it up. If you are driving in the car, pay attention. Don't start any accidents. So for those of you who are not aware, if you're listening to this on iTunes, we do have video. So come to the website and check out the video on YouTube and on the website. check us out. If you're listening on iTunes, also give us a rating, review. If you're watching on YouTube, then please click the like button. Subscribe to our channel. Also, go ahead and leave a comment or response on the voicemail feedback line if you have any questions about homeschooling as well. 760-694-9039. We would love for you to be a part of the community. If you are on the website, post a comment below. So go ahead and post your comment below this particular post so that we can have a whole bunch of comments there. So thanks for watching and tuning in to the Homeschooling Buzz here on the Homeschooling Netcast Network at www.homeschoolnetcast.com. The Homeschooling Buzz is where we keep you buzzing on homeschooling. Hey guys, I'm out. The Homeschooling Buzz is brought to you by the Christian Home Educators Association of California, CHIA, the authority in home education, and by Total Transcript Solution. Produce winning transcripts with Total Transcript Solution, homeschoolnetcast.com/TTS, and by ClickBank Pirate. Tough economic times call for tough economic measures. Check it out, homeschoolnetcast.com/ClickBankPirate.